The scratch of pen against paper filled the small space eerily. I regretted not donning my heavy coat. Jail cells were always uncomfortable. I suppose they wouldn't be very effective if they weren't. The large man seated before me was clad in orange and bad decisions. His face was unshaven, his eyes sunken. It was difficult to reconcile the man with the file. He was accused of a gruesome beating and murder that had made national news. Please, start from the beginning. Leave nothing out, I told him. He licked his lips, unsure of how much he could trust me. I sighed. Everything you tell me is privileged under threat of disbarment. Not even the president himself could make me disclose it to him. And if he did, it wouldn't be admissible in court. Now, please, begin. The orange man relaxed somewhat. It started a few months ago. I'd been dating this girl for a while. We had met through a friend and it was going pretty good. I took her home one night. We were both pretty fucking drunk. I don't remember too good, but I think she knocked my TV off the wall. She was zigzagging all over the damn place and she ran straight into the fucking thing. Well, like I said, I was pissed drunk and that thing was expensive. I was mad as hell, but I was calm about it. You always gotta be calm so you don't spook 'em. I interrupted him. I'm sorry, what do you mean always? Are you implying that this isn't your first time? The man chuckled. Oh, hell no, mister. That case in Las Vegas a couple months back, that was me too. Some poor bastard who checked in on the hotel room after I was gone got that one pinned on him. Then there was that one in Oregon, California, and that real unfortunate one in Wisconsin. It's not my first rodeo. I nodded. People in my line of work are difficult to shock. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. The man cleared his throat. Well, like I said, I was mad as hell. The girl had done broke the one nice thing I own. I got her into my bed, put one of them old blindfolds on her. She was into that kind of thing. Wasn't too hard to convince her. I went into the kitchen and came back with a butcher's knife. One of them big suckers. I heated the thing up over a fire, and when I came back into the room, the stupid bitch had no idea what was coming for her. I put one of those ball gags in her mouth to stop her screaming, and she was already tied up, so there was no chance of her getting away. The heat of the knife was enough to cauterize the wounds too. No mess. I interrupted again. I'm sorry, if you used a hot knife, why was there blood on the pillow? The man sighed. Well, I ain't proud of it, but I keep a baseball bat under my bed to scare off any would-be robbers. I was practically livid by that point, so I went to work with that thing first. I raised my hand. Be specific, please. Where did you strike her? How hard? How many times? I was taking careful notes. His eyebrow raised. Why in the world do you need to know that? I put my pen down for a moment. Okay. My job is to know what I need to know. Your job is to tell me. Now answer the question, please. The inmate nodded. I reckon I hit her 2 or 3 times with the handle of the thing on the forehead, and a couple of times each in the legs and arms. Then I set to work with the knife. I carved her arms, legs, and stomach up pretty good. The killing blow was most likely around her ribcage. I went a little too deep. Ended things sooner than I would have liked. The scratch of the pen filled the room once more. I picked up my notebook. "Would you mind if I read back some of my notes to make sure they are accurate?" I asked. The man spread his hands. "By all means." I adjusted my glasses. "Okay. You began with 2 blows to the forehead, and then 2 to the upper extremities, followed by a superficial cutting injuries with a heated knife to each limb and the stomach. When you reached the ribcage, you accidentally applied too much pressure and stopped her heart." I looked up questioningly. "Is that all correct?" "Sounds about right to me," he replied. I stood, taking my notepad with me. "Wait here. I'll be back shortly." I left the room and returned minutes later with a guard and release papers. "I've paid your bail," I addressed him. "That's mighty kind of you," he said, genuinely. The policeman wrestled with the rusty iron lock for a moment, and then pulled it open. The prisoner fell in step behind me, and we passed through a second set of doors, controlled by an electric lock. The hallway was long and empty. Our footsteps echoed eerily. Once the man's personal items had been returned, I took him to my car. "I've rented a hotel room. You'll stay there with me tonight." He did not object. I dropped him off and told him my room number, and handed him a key card. "I need to do some shopping. I'll be back soon." When I returned to the room, the man was sitting on the bed and watching TV. He almost didn't hear me come in the front door. I put my things down and began unpacking my bags. I spoke as I did so. "You know, some people are calling you the most hated man in the country right now," I told him. "Yeah, I've gotten that before. Notorious serial killers don't tend to get medals." I chuckled at that. "Don't get medals. You're a funny man, you know that?" I said, approaching the bed. He laughed. "Sometimes I can be." I leaned over him. "You know who will never get to be funny again? Nicole Bloom." I snapped the restraints onto his wrist before he knew what was happening. The blindfold slipped easily over his eyes, and the ball gag over his mouth. He struggled, but to no avail. 2 little girls. That's who you've made orphans, Mr. Green. 2 beautiful children who will grow up in foster care because of you. I slid the baseball bat out of the bag, bringing it down on his head twice in succession. His arms and legs soon followed. He screamed, but the sound was muffled by the ball gag and sounded more like choking. A young woman with her whole life ahead of her, dead because of you. And why? You got piss drunk and couldn't help yourself. I procured the knife from the bag and held it against the lighter until it glowed red. Why should she be dead while you crack jokes? I parted the skin on his leg, but was careful not to press too deeply. Slowly and methodically, I dragged it across his limbs, leaving scalded marks and the smell of burnt flesh in its wake. His screams had turned to shrill shrieks, and his thrashings had reached fish-out-of-water proportions. "Don't worry, Fred, it's almost over," I smiled. The knife had reached his stomach, and then, pressing slowly but deeply into his chest cavity, I extinguished his life. I waited for a moment to confirm that he was dead. His breath was gone, his pulse silent. I rolled a large police body bag out from my suitcase and hauled the body into it. My friend at the morgue would deal with him. Soon, he would just be another John Doe at the local hospital. Straightening, I cracked my back and smiled with contentment. Whistling, I stepped over the body and began the walk back down to the police station. It was only noon, after all.